Okay, now we're going to move into the ordinances, and we have a number of them for introduction. 0719, Mr. Mills.
Yes, Mayor, and I'd like to note that each of these ordinances will be further considered for public hearing, second reading, final adoption on May 15th at 7 o'clock at the municipal building. 07 is entitled Accepting a Deed of Easement from Easement Lot 13.01, Block 6005, property at 8 Old Murder Road. The grantee is Todd Piero. It is an easement for sanitary sewer lines.
Mr. Kuhn, can you just say a couple words?
It's for the Skyline Sewer project that is underway, and just so that we can tie in, we need to go through the back of that property to connect the other residences on Mount Trumbull Avenue.
Very good. And as we've done before this year, we have previously we didn't allow the public to ask questions about our ordinances until the second reading, but if anybody has a comment, did we vote on it first and then ask for a comment? We vote on it first and then ask for any comments, or ask for comments now?
There'll be no changes, so
Right.
it's either way. You can
Yeah,
take
this
the vote.
is just for introduction, but since we've gone through it before, we'll do it for this one. Does anybody have any comments from the public on 0719? Okay, seeing none, I'll ask somebody to move it.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call?
Mr. Arvanites?
Yes.
Mr. Dorothy?
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso?
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson?
yes,
Mayor Rizzo?
Yes. Mr. Mills, 0419?
Bond ordinance providing for various capital improvements by the Township of Morris, appropriating the aggregate amount of $2,700,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $2,570,000 bonds or notes of the Township to finance part of the cost thereof relating to the 2019 capital program.
Very good. And this just relates to the money we're going to be expending this year for capital projects around town. You're going to hear more about that in the budget presentation to come. So will somebody move? Does anybody have any comments from the public? Okay, very good. Will somebody move that, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call?
Mr. Arvanites?
Yes.
Mr. Dorothy?
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso?
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson?
yes,
Mayor Rizzo?
Yes. John, 0515?
It is a bond order titled a bond ordinance providing for swimming pool improvements by the Township of Morris, appropriating $86,500 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $82,000 bonds or notes of the township to finance part of the cost thereof, again, as you noted, part of the capital program.
Very good. And this year the swim pools are going to be putting in some new shade structures to provide more shade for the people who use the pool, and we're also getting was it a UV filter? UV filter for the pumping system, so we need to raise funds for that. Will somebody move that, please?
So moved.
Thank you.
Thanks. Roll call?
Mr. Arvanites?
Yes.
Mr. Dorothy?
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso?
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson?
yes,
Mayor Rizzo?
Yes. John, 16?
Entitled an ordinance appropriating $2,103,500 available in the sewer utility capital improvement fund to provide for various wastewater treatment plant and sewer system improvements by the Township of Morris, again, 2019 capital program.
All right, so this is capital that's going to be used in the sewer utility. The sewer utility is separate from the municipal budget, so that's why we have the separate ordinance for this. And you'll hear more about that again in the budget presentation. Will somebody move it, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thanks. Roll call?
Mr. Arvanites?
Yes.
Mr. Dorothy?
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso?
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson?
yes,
Mayor Rizzo?
Yes. Mr. Mills, 17?
An ordinance appropriating $25,000 available in the parking utility capital improvement fund to provide for drainage improvements at the convent station house by the Township of Morris, another capital ordinance. I'll offer it.
And just a little explanation that the parking utility is also a separate utility. It's separate from the municipal budget, separate from the pool budget, separate from the sewer utility, and that's why it has its own bond ordinance. And the money is going to be used for, Mr. Quinn?
Replace the gutters on the building.
Replace the gutters on the building housing the station. Very good. Will somebody move that, please?
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Arvanites?
Yes.
Mr. Dorothy?
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso?
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson?
yes,
Mayor Rizzo?
Yes. John, 18?
Is entitled an ordinance appropriating $507,500 available in the general capital improvement fund to provide for various capital improvements by the Township of Morris, and obviously, again, another capital ordinance.
Very good. And this is monies that we are not bonding for. We're paying for these projects, smaller projects in cash that we have on hand. So these are smaller projects that we're just bundling together into one appropriation. And you'll hear again more about that in the budget presentation. Will somebody move that, please?
So moved.
I have a second.
Second.
Thanks. Roll call.
Mr. Arvanites?
Yes.
Mr. Drossy?
Abstain.
Mr. Mancuso?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson? Yes. Mayor Griswold?
Yes. John, 19.
Yes, an ordinance appropriating the aggregate amount of $985,000 to provide for the Washington Valley Road resurfacing project by the Township of Morris, another capital program.
Very good. And this is for a special project to repave the full length of Washington Valley Road from Mendham Road all the way to the Mendham border. How long a length of run is that? 2 miles? 2 miles of road surface. It's in very bad shape, and Sue Young, who's here, can attest to that. So it's a very large appropriation, but it is a very, very long run that's going to be completely, a very long road that's going to be completely resurfaced. And Mr. Quinn reminded me, we have a $550,000 grant from the state New Jersey Department of Transportation to offset the cost of that road resurfacing. So the money is, appropriation is large. We're going to get $550,000 of that back after the project is completed. Will somebody move that?
Are we bonding any of this?
No, sir. Generally, capital program, so. I'll vote first.
Thank you. I have a second.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Mr. Arvanites?
No.
Mr. Drossy?
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso?
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson? Yes. Mayor Griswold?
Yes. And now we are going to move into the ordinances for public hearing and final consideration. John, 0819.
Yes, Mayor, I understand that you may wish to entertain a motion to carry the Economic Development Advisory Committee ordinance to the May 15th meeting, if I correctly understand.
Use the microphone, please.
I would like to propose a minor adjustment to the language.
Okay, then let us do this. Let us get it
Let's get it
in,
a first
moved,
and a second.
then you can propose it from, so Mayor, then ask for a motion to adopt.
Will somebody, we're going to have a discussion after we get a first and a second, but will somebody move this, please?
So moved.
I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Okay, the minor revision is in 9-41, Section A, the double I portion. In place of enhance, substitute the word increase. So the statement reads, increase the municipal tax base without increasing the tax burden on township residents.
Is that the only suggestion for language
Yes.
improvement? Okay, so guys, do you have, Mark, do you have the language in front of you there?
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Okay. Excuse me, I'll just try and find it. Yeah, so
Do you want to put it off?
I would like to put it off, and just so the public knows, and it's available, this language is available online. I'm not sure it's in the package or not. It's not in the package there. But it was made available ahead of time. This is language we have an economic development advisory committee that's been in place. There are some suggestions about changing some of the language about the purposes of the committee in the ordinance that created it. So we're just making some language amendments to that ordinance. The EDAC itself came up with language suggestions to improve. How would you term it? To improve.
This language came from EDAC.
Right, and the purpose was to.
Well, the initial
And
purpose,
Deputy Mayor Wilson is the representative on EDAC, which is why I'm asking her these questions.
the original purpose of making revisions was because a couple of our new members, ambiguities in the language came up as a result of doing conflict of interest reviews. So the purpose was to clarify the language on that, and then that a few other revisions were made secondary to that.
Mhm. Okay, so I had brought this up, that there's a couple sentences in here about enhancing municipal revenue without increasing the tax burdens of Morris Township residents, and to provide new municipal tax revenue sources with minimal impact on municipal services. I had just wanted to send it back to EDAC to ask if they could expand on that language, because I think the purpose of EDAC is much more than that, just increasing the tax base. I want to make it clear that things like we want to balance between residential and commercial ratables. We'd like to expand the ratables base, things like that, without just a sort of focus on the tax and revenue element of it, because
I think that was intended, but we can take it back. And
Mayor, do you want to table this one until?
yeah. So I just wanted to explain to the public without just going ahead and tabling it why I'm asking to table it.
So what we're saying is that we'll bring it back to EDAC. Their next meeting is May 6th, I believe.
Yes, so I'm requesting you take it back to EDAC, and each of us can give you some language suggestions, but I have some that I'll put forward and run it by EDAC and see what they say. But I just want this to reflect the values of the community, and I think this doesn't reflect the full values of what we're trying to do with EDAC. If that makes sense.
Well, it's your response to the language.
Okay.
There was a discussion at EDAC today. I believe that the intent that you're describing is addressed by the single change that I proposed, but I'm happy to take it back and run it by the committee again.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion that is the
Well,
preferred
if the maker of the motion and the seconder would agree to withdraw their motion, then that would open it up, their motion to adopt, then that would open up for a motion to table, or whatever you're.
Okay, so who made the motion?
I'll make that motion.
No, who made the original motion?
Kathy did.
So will you retract your original motion to adopt this ordinance?
Yes.
Very good. And you seconded, Peter, will you take away your second?
Second?
No, you have to, you seconded the original motion, so
I'll second.
we're removing that.
Okay.
So you're removing your second, okay. So now I'm going to make a motion that we just table this till the next meeting, and Kathy's going to get some more feedback from EDAC. Do we need to take a vote on that,
And I'm
John?
going to hear from any feedback from the township committee members.
Okay, very good. Could I have a second on my motion?
Second.
Very good. Roll call, please.
John, I just have a question on this. If
Yes.
we're going to table this, should we?
It's tabled to May 15th.
We're not going to reintroduce it if there's major changes to it?
The changes did not seem, to my mind, to be of substantially
Okay.
alterative nature, if that's a word.
Okay. So do we take a roll call on
Voice
the
vote's fine
motion?
on that.
A voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay, next on the agenda, John, 0918.
Yes, I would ask that when I read it by title, you call for a motion to adopt and open for public hearing an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending Chapter 88 entitled Vehicles and Traffic, Article 2, Section 88, 2.7, and Schedule 6, no parking, snow-covered roadway, Lindsley Drive, both sides, entire length. And the footnote says adding that street to our ordinance of snow-covered roads.
Very good. We'll open it up in a second, but we have a first to move that, please. Make that motion.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Very good. So this is an ordinance that would restrict parking on Lindsley Drive during snow, because our snow plows, when residents park on the street, have had a hard time clearing that street, and there's plenty of parking behind the apartment complex to accommodate the cars, so we're putting a no parking ordinance in place. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public portion. I wasn't sure what that movement was. Very good. Roll call, please.
Mr. Davies?
Yes.
Mr. Jarfi?
Yes.
Mr. Marquisa?
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson?
Yes.
Mayor Rizzo?
Yes. Jeffrey Grazel, Mayor, declare the ordinance adopted and finally passed, approve the same, and direct that the clerk publish the proper notice thereof in the newspaper and to record the ordinance in the proper place. Mr. Mills, 0919.
Yes, I
No,
want to call a course.
1019.
Yep, 1019, an ordinance appropriating $25,000 available in the general capital fund to provide for the replacement of the HVA system at the Mount Campbell Fire Station here and by the Township of Morris, and obviously purposes to replace the aircon.
Very good. So the ordinance speaks for itself. We had an emergency repair that needs to be done at the firehouse in advance of the summer season that's coming, so we appropriated $25,000 for that.
So moved.
Will somebody introduce that?
Mr.
Very
Armitage.
good. Second?
Second.
I'll open it up for public commentary and questioning. And seeing none, I'll close the public portion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Armitage?
Yes.
Mr. Dorothy?
Abstain.
Mr. Mancuso?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mayor Griswold?
Yes. Jeffrey Grizel, Mayor, declare the ordinance adopted and finally passed, approve the same, and direct that the clerk publish proper notice thereof in the newspaper and to record the ordinance in the proper place. Mr. Mills, 11.
Yes, Mayor. Calendar year 2019 ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank pursuant to the statute as noted, part of the budgetary process.
All right, so
I'll let-
this is part of the budgetary process, but I'm going to let Mr. Quinn, the expert, just weigh in on the exact purpose of it.
Certain appropriations.
Being we have our experts here, I'll try, but I'm going to ask Mr. McNerney and Mr. Gannon if I don't get everything to weigh in along with Ms. DeAngelis. Each year the budget comes in much lower than the 2% tax levy. This gives us the ability to take those funds and put them into what they call a cap bank, so that in future budgets, should we need that funding, we can do that without going to referendum. Am I kind of on target? Thank you, sir.
Can I add something?
Yes, sir. This is Mr. McNerney from O'Connor Davies, our auditors.
One of the things that I always come upon with, people think that this is actually a cash bank. It's not. It's just an authorization to spend a higher amount in the subsequent year based on this, resolution. And it has to be done prior to the adoption of the budget, or the introduction of it. So, was this done? That's the only thing I'm questioning. Was this done prior to the introduction of the budget?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
And again, it's not a bank that has actual money. If you're going to use the extra funds that we're not using this year, you would still have to have those funds in the budget to actually pay to exceed the cap bank. So it's like a fictitious bank, almost. Okay. Will somebody move that, please?
It's all already done.
It's already done, and we have a second?
Just public hearing.
Okay. So anybody from the public have any questions or comments about 11-19? Seeing none, I'll close the public portion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Armitage?
Yes.
Mr. Dorothy?
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mayor Griswold?
Yes. Jeffrey Grizel, Mayor, declare the ordinance adopted and finally passed, approve the same, and direct that the clerk publish proper notice thereof in the newspaper and to record the ordinance in the proper place. Mr. Mills, 13-19.
Yes, Mayor. An ordinance of the Township of Morris.
12-19, sorry, 12-19.
I know what you meant. The County of Morris, New Jersey, amending and supplementing Chapter 95 entitled Zoning by repealing and replacing Article 12 entitled Small Cell Equipment, Wireless Cabinets, and Wireless Poles in the Municipal Runaway with a new Article 12 entitled Reserved, and revising our Section 89A9 of Article 13 entitled Co-location onto existing towers and base stations.
Okay, so
I'll let you.
So ordinance 12-19 and 13-19 have to do with the upcoming implementation of the new 5G, fifth generation cellular service, and it's going to be a different kind of installation that we're used to. On these big poles are going to be a lot smaller, a lot more poles with smaller installations on them. And we're one of the first municipalities in the state of New Jersey to implement this, to put this in place to protect ourselves. One of the things we're trying to do is limit what I call pole proliferation, because you can imagine every carrier is going to want their own pole in the street, but we're trying to group them together as best we can, and there are some other elements in there as well. Is that in this one or the next one?
It's the next one.
It's the next one, so I'm talking about the next one.
But they're
tied together.
They're yin and yang.
Right, we're putting this in place so that if we do have a proposal for 5G to come into Morris Township, and I would welcome it because I do think it's the next best generation of technology, we have something in place to monitor and implement it appropriately. So this is the right thing to do. Will somebody move it, and then we'll open it up for public questioning?
So moved.
Second.
Second? Very good. So I'll open up for public questioning and comments. Anybody from the public? Seeing none, I'll close the public portion. Ask for a roll call.
Mr. Armitage?
Yes.
Mr. Dorothy?
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso?
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson?
Yes.
Mayor Griswold?
Yes. I, Jeffrey Brazel, Mayor, declare the ordinance adopted and finally passed, approve the same, and direct that the clerk publish proper notice thereof in the newspaper and to record the ordinance in the proper place. Mr. Mills, 1319, and I believe we have a couple minor word changes to
Yes,
include.
let's get it, let me read it by title, get it, motion adopted, and then we'll look at the amendment. Thank you for reminding me. An ordinance of the Township of Morris, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, amending and supplementing the revised general ordinance of the Township, ordinances of the Township of Morris by adding Article 6 entitled Siting of Poles, Cabinets, and Antennas in Chapter 439 entitled Streets and Sidewalks, update for consistency purposes with the Federal Communications Commission rule.
Very good. Did you want to, should I go over the language change? Do we move that language change?
I'll be happy to do it. I'd like to get a motion to adopt and then we'll amend. I think, in other words, I think we need procedurally, we need a motion to put it in play
Mhm.
and then discuss the amendments.
Okay, very good. Well,
Make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. So we're going to have just some minor housekeeping words added to this ordinance. And I should have stated before that ordinance 1219 and 1319 were actually put in place last year. And there was a recent FCC ruling because the FCC wants to take control of implementation in certain aspects of 5G. And they supersede what we had tried to do last year. So that's why we made some of those changes based on the federal FCC ruling. And this particular ordinance just has a couple of housekeeping words that we failed to put in last time. It doesn't change the substance of the ordinance whatsoever, and Mr. Mills will review that.
Exactly so. The proposed amendments are to section 439-47A to add, after the pre-application meeting, add the phrase, while not required by the township, comma, prior to making a formal application. And then the language remains unchanged. The second non-substantive modification, section 43950, under co-location requirement, any holder of is the way it previously read. Those two words are stricken, so it would now read, any applicant for a right-of-way permit shall as a condition to the issuance, and then continuing as presented. So I would ask you to see if there's if the maker of the motion and seconder would accept those as a friendly amendment.
Ms. Wilson, will you accept that as a friendly amendment?
Yes, I will.
Very good. Mr. Mancuso, thank you. We'll open it up now for public questioning and comment. Anybody from the public have a question? Seeing none, I'll close the public portion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Dorothy?
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso?
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson?
Yes.
Mayor Briscoe?
Yes. I, Jeffrey Brazel, Mayor, declare the ordinance adopted and finally passed, approve the same, and direct that the clerk publish proper notice thereof in the newspaper and to record the ordinance in the proper place.